Tonight on Localite with John Compton, Jon Bell shows you that no matter what you think you know about Mount Hood, there's more to learn. He's the author of the recently published On Mount Hood, a beautiful work that weaves personal, historic, geologic, and newsworthy tales of the mountain into an entertaining, enrapturing book. That's all next on Localite.
John, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me, John.
Absolutely. This book, I haven't had the privilege of reading all of it yet, but it's really a great read.
Well, thanks very much. That's what I was going for.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the mark. But you're from Ohio.
I am.
How did you end up out here and this vast knowledge of Mount Hood?
I was born and raised in Ohio, and kind of just got wanderlust, during college, and started doing some exploring out west. Took a couple trips during college, and then knew that I wanted to come out west. After being out here and seeing the mountains and the ocean and everything, it's kind of hard to go back. I love Ohio, my family's there, but it's hard to go back and do it. So my wife-to-be and I at the time traveled out west after college, and ended up living in Colorado for a little bit, and then California for a little bit, and then we were young and didn't have a lot of responsibility, so we packed up our cars and came to Oregon, and really kind of fell in love with Portland and the mountain, and have been here since '97, and just don't really have any immediate plans to leave.
Yeah. So you were one of those then that literally just packed up the car and headed across the country?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, initially it was just kind of some 3-week, 6-week vacations, just driving around aimlessly. But then my sister lived in Denver for a little bit, and she invited us to come out. And so, yeah, we were, 22, 23. We didn't have a whole lot of possessions or responsibilities. So, yeah, we were able to just kind of be footloose and move around.
Well, where did the interest in Mount Hood come in?
It came really from the first day I saw the mountain. I remember driving up I-5 in 1997. It was an October day, and kind of clear. We were coming up the Terwilliger Curves, and there was Mount Hood off in the distance. And it's the kind of thing that the first time you see it like that, it can pretty much run you off the road if you're not paying attention. So right then I knew, it was like nothing I had ever seen before. And then after we got here and got settled a little bit, we started really exploring the mountain, hiking it, just going up there to Timberline Lodge and really exploring the mountain. And, it just kind of became part of my life the way it does for a lot of people who live in Portland and Oregon and all around the Northwest.
Right. So your book is on Mount Hood. And when did you start thinking, I'm going to write this book?
Mm-hmm. The initial idea, well, in addition to just kind of being really smitten by the mountain, the initial specific idea I can actually trace to my wife. In 1999, we both read a book called The Measure of a Mountain, which is a book all about Mount Rainier. And you get done reading that book and you feel like you've read a biography of a mountain. It's a really good book and really lets you get to know the mountain. And at the time, my wife said, you should write a book like that about Mount Hood. And I wasn't a writer at the time, or at least I wasn't a professional writer. I was kind of an aspiring writer. And I just kind of laughed about it a little bit and thought, maybe someday. And then over the years, I did become a writer, became a journalist, and did some outdoor writing, did some freelance writing. And a couple years ago, decided that idea that she had originally planted in my head should come out of my head and I should try it. And so I did. And I think it was 2009 that I initially pulled the idea out and started looking into what it would take and what other books were out there on the market, and put together a proposal and found a publisher that was interested.
Interested, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's especially for your very first book. I mean, it's hard in the what I've read of it, which, like I said, I'm looking forward to actually reading the entire thing. But from what I have read, you sound very much like an expert, and you've got some really great interviews in there and talked to some really key people who really have a great knowledge. How did you end up getting connections to to some of those folks?
A lot of it's just good old journalism and looking for the right people and talking to the right people. In addition, exploring the mountain for 14 years, I kind of built up this big knowledge base of things that I think were important about the mountain and things that were good to explore. And then, yeah, just one of the things that I found really interesting about Mount Hood is that so many people have a connection with it or a story with it. So if you put out the feelers for, I need a geologist, who do I talk to? People just start dropping names, and everybody has some sort of connection, or, you know, who should I talk to for the snowboarding and skiing aspect? I've climbed the mountain several times myself, so I had some good climbing connections. So, you know, it's kind of a mixture that got me what I feel are the right people to talk about the mountain.
Well, one of the things too that until reading your book, I didn't realize 5 million, somewhere in there, visitors come out to visit Mount Hood.
Yeah, roughly. I think it's 4.5 million plus visit the Mount Hood National Forest every year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which is a huge amount of people. 2 million alone go to Timberline Lodge, so it's a pretty big draw and a pretty big. Has a pretty big impact on the state and the region.
Yeah. And then there was even a figure in there on how many people actually hike and summit the mountain. And remind me of that figure.
They estimate between 8,000 and 10,000 people attempt to summit every year.
And when was the first time you did that?
The first time I did it was 1999, 2 years after we got here. Somebody had told me that you could climb Mount Hood in tennis shoes or sneakers, and I come to realize that's not true, but it is a relatively accessible mountain in terms of climbers and amateur climbing. So I took a mountaineering course and did some training and some conditioning, and first time climbed it in '99, and then have done it a handful of times since then.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of people think that it's this easy climb. In fact, you have a mention in your book of somebody who, in their city boots with their yak tracks strapped on or something, who tried to go up it, which. That he wasn't successful in that?
To be honest, I think he actually did summit a pretty difficult route on the north side, but coming down, he tripped and fell. He was the one. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of another one. There was a guy who went up only in boots, and he had like a buck knife or a Bowie knife that he was using to cut steps. The guy in the yak tracks, he ended up falling down the south side, and I think either breaking or spraining his ankle and requiring a rescue. So people go up there unprepared all the time and get into trouble.
Yeah. Well, obviously some, great stories in there, and we'll talk more about that when we come back. So you guys stick with us. We'll be right back with Jon Bell.
Up next.
And I found that with everybody from geologists to the folks up at Timberline Lodge. I talked to Jeff Constam, who is the guy who runs the company, who runs the lodge, and he basically grew up at Timberline Lodge, So I got both the sort of the technical and detailed business side from people that I needed to, but also their own personal connection with the mountain.